Welcome, everybody, to Self Care. This is Reverend Jodi Suson with Suson Essentials, and we had a little opportunity to learn how to pivot today. so today we have Dr. Tom Lankering. He is a brain-based bioenergetic chiropractor. Um, he has practiced in the Aspen, Colorado area since 1984. In addition to his chiropractic practice, he is a lecturer, a TV host, a podcast guest, and co-author of Wake Up the Happy Brain, which actually I have that book. I just have not had a chance to read it yet. He, along with Dr. Joe Dispenzas so I guess Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, and others are also in that book. And he will correct me if I misunderstood this. So Dr. Tom Lankering was named Colorado Presidential Chiropractor of the Year. This is 2005. He has an online program, which is 6 biohacking, secrets to feel younger and have more energy. And without further ado, I am very grateful to bring to you Dr. Tom Lankering.
Hello,
Hello.
Reverend Jodi. Hi, great to see you. Great to be here. Thanks for the
Likewise.
opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. So I'm in my brand new office with, it's interesting. I've had some very fun. Okay. I'm just going to see.
Make sure the wall doesn't come down.
Move yourself, right? There you go. If one way doesn't work. So we met at the Optimal Health Systems seminar I think it was September 24th, 25th, around there. And I was just really inspired by everything that you do. The Revive and Brain Tap and your gift to have insight into how to help people heal themselves, right? And tell me what it was that spurred you into this part of your life. What made you become a chiropractor?
Yeah, I've always been seeking. I always like to learn. I've always been inspired and motivated by the people that I didn't quite get the results that I wanted to get. And so I was never satisfied, and I've always been seeking. And so I've been fortunate to really be amongst some amazing people and mentors and teachers. And it's really been fascinating. I think a lot of it starts, people ask, like, how did I get to Aspen, or how did I become a chiropractor? And I tell them it's very simple. It was destiny. That's how I got started with being out here. Just to start off, a quick little story. I was born in a manger. Just kidding. But anyway, I always had an interest.
I'm sorry, that's hilarious. I love anybody who has a great sense of humor. And I'm sharing the show, by the way. So if I seem a little distracted, somehow we lost the connection on one of the Facebook links. So I'm just resharing the show so people can join in today and receive your wisdom. So don't mind me. I'm just sharing away. So go ahead.
So this major, I tell people, it was in Krypton, which is just east of New Jersey, but I tell people I'm from Jersey. So I was in a manger born in Krypton. So, but anyway, I've got an S on my chest. So I always had an interest in the science and nature and in biology, and fascinated by it. And when I went to undergraduate school, I went there as a pre-med student, and a good friend of mine, was one of those guys, wonderful, as nice a guy as you can, it was studying hard, and he applied for med school, and they didn't accept him. And I was like, wow, if they're not going to accept him, are they going to accept me? And then I said, if they're not going to accept me or him, is that even the kind of system I want to be in? And I had the good fortune of I started ski instructing. I was in Albany, New York, and So with my brother and 4 sisters, and we were ski instructing in the spring of my senior year, I got certified ski instructing. When I went to the certification exam, everybody had smiles on their faces. Everybody's just having a great time. I mean, I was like, you know what? That's what I'm doing. I'm going skiing. And so I told my dad, and he's like, great. He says, why don't you just have something to fall back on? I was like, yeah. He says, like chiropractic. I said, okay, whatever that is. He filled out the applications for me. And I drove out in my 67 Falcon Turbo station wagon. And a mutual friend had someone out here in Aspen who wanted his stereo. And if I brought his stereo out, I could sleep on his couch. So back then, the stereo speakers were the size of the room. And, so I had that in my pair of skis. But I got out here, and the first morning I woke up.
So I'm still on the stereo, the size of the speakers of the room, right? Because I remember those days where
right,
were like really huge, and now it's like this little thing, right? Or maybe
right. It's like, back then it was like, could you help me move my speaker? Needed help to
right,
move
and
it.
you needed a team to do it.
Yeah, it was an operation. So it was it was back in those days. And what I was saying, that my first morning I woke up, walked outside the mountains here in the Rocky Mountains, and the voice just hit me. I mean, it was like boom, it was like, this is it, this is home, this is where you're supposed to be. You can kick your feet up, you don't have to worry about going anywhere else. This is it. And I still have that feeling here. It's still amazing. Obviously, like the rest of the world, it's this area has changed, but it's still a pretty special place. And so I got hired ski instructing with the Aspen Ski School. You would have thought my father thought I was hired by the New York Yankees or something like that. And I kept taking deferments. I took 2 years of deferments to go back to Palmer College. And I finally said, okay, I'm going to go back there. And I got back. I remember it was the first week I was sitting in class. You can still see the room and chair I was sitting in and looking out the window. And the voice was like, boom, you're supposed to be a chiropractor. So I knew I was supposed to be a chiropractor in Aspen. And the voice was just so loud and so profound. It was like, if I'd look this way, like, no, take me back and look, I'd look, take me back and go, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I always thought, there's different ways, and there's a lot of money in Aspen and so forth. And I was always looking at that, but it's like, no, this is your calling. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And so through a lot of the challenges and the ups and downs and everything else, and like everybody, but this calling of my destiny to help people, and not just help people from a medical standpoint. And I appreciate the commitment that people in that field have, but I really had a strong sense of helping people on a natural sense of just, the miracle that this body that we live in here is just so amazing and so fascinating. And there's, such a frontier of unknowns, but yet there are pathways, there's ways, that we can ask the body questions and work with the body and what the body can do. And if we treat it properly, it's pretty amazing. So that's now, after 40 years of practice, I mean, I'm more excited, I'm more passionate than ever. I think we see what's going on in the healthcare, what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is doing. I mean, now things I've been talking about for 40 years are now front page. It used to be I was the clown.
Right?
Yeah, finally, right?
Finally. So,
right?
Actually, my book published March 11th, and I have a friend of mine who is meeting with Bobby Kennedy to discuss our water system. So he is hand delivering my book to Bobby Kennedy. And I'm like, thank you, Jesus, right?
Yeah. Bobby's he's an amazing person. I've been able to do 3 TV shows with him. If people go on YouTube, they can search, Tom Lankering and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And the whole story, how I got to meet him, has been pretty amazing. But wow, there are a few people, when you get in their presence and you're able to connect with them, he is just an amazing energy. And he's just, a walking encyclopedia, and his knowledge. But I think it comes from a lot of his growing up and, in his living room. I mean, the world walked through his living room. And so he's a really amazing person, but, really committed to ending this child chronic health sickness, chronic sickness epidemic of what's going on. And as we see, he knows the system, he knows the players, he's very clear on what he wants to do. And so it's very exciting to see what's happening there.
I'm super excited. So what I'll tell you, and by the way, just so the show is for entertainment purposes only until YouTube learns that we're talking about reality. So, so, so here's the thing. There's a lot of different energy that's around what's about the changes that Bobby Kennedy is making, right? And a lot of people don't understand it yet. And I think that, like, as a community like our community is highly evolved. And I think that we need to keep sending those people who don't understand yet, send them love and grace, right?
Yeah, right.
Because I remember it was over 10 years ago now for me, 12 years ago, when I realized I had been lied to all my life about health. And we want to send people love and grace, right? Because they're having cognitive dissonance, they're angry, they're sad, they're having all the emotions from all over the globe because, of course, they didn't lie to us, right? Of course, they didn't lie to us. And it's okay. We need to love these people where they're at. Secondly, about the energy, let's talk about Bobby Kennedy. You know, and I can't talk about this without mentioning my friend Jeremy Freeman of Freeman Formula, who wrote a book called Choices that I just read. And, the thing is, we are a culmination of all of our choices and our commitment to a thing, whatever your thing is. And when I think about Bobby Kennedy, he has an unwavering commitment to health, right? To saving the children, like to being the force that no one else was willing to walk. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the level of which he's now being charged to walk it. There's many of us who are walking it. So not to provide any disrespect or disservice to those, like, you're walking it, I'm walking it, but not everybody has a chance to meet me or hear me or you, right? They all know him. They all know him. And so he's the chosen one for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think a lot of that, he has a book called American Values, Lessons that I Learned from My Family. And I thought it was a fascinating book. I mean, all of his books are historical and documented and so forth. But I think that a lot of the values and the lessons he learned from his uncle, from his father, from his mother, I mean, just his whole life, but that commitment to the country and to people and to fighting the cause and to doing what we know that we need to do. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I thought COVID was a great thing. I don't want to say great thing. I thought it had some good aspects because it's woken a lot of people up. Like you said, 12 years ago, we didn't really know, a lot of people didn't really know what health was. But I think when COVID came around, at least my experience was as soon as it happened, because they closed down the ski areas. And I was like, what, you're closing my ski areas down?
They I'm not going to be able to. My office down. Yeah. They closed my office. I couldn't even practice in Illinois.
I never succumbed to that. They wanted to shut things down, and I said no, because they were saying, pot shops and tattoo stores and liquor stores were necessary. And I was like, no. Yeah. So, but when that came around, right, I was like, you know what? Because they were talking about, well, health is wearing a mask and washing your hands and staying 6 feet apart and then getting and I was like, that's not what health is. I said, it's my job to let people know what health really is about, and that this is our opportunity. That was our Great Reset, not their Great Reset, but to really step forward, because now as we're seeing, this transition that we've gone through, and I started speaking out at rallies and school board meetings and letters to the editor and board of health, meetings and so forth. And I said, we're in a war. This is good versus evil, but we're going to win this war. We are winning this war, but we're going to win it through love and compassion and communication. And we need to establish civil discourse. And it's interesting. It's exciting to see what's happening now. So we're seeing those changes.
Yeah, I agree with you. And let me add to the war. So the war is a spiritual war.
Yes.
It's the spiritual war started, I think, World War I or World War II, with the onset of a glyphosate, which was pulling minerals out of our body, out of our food supply. And minerals are how we connect spiritually to God and to each other. And without those minerals, our body just doesn't function. And, we're energy beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have done a demo before. I was at a church, right, who did not share my values. Yeah, it was a wake-up call for me.
All right.
Explain the biofield, right? And I don't know why I have a blurry screen, but I don't seem to be able to turn off the blur, so please forgive that. But I was trying to explain the biofield to somebody, right? So if you get up really close to someone, you can feel them, right? But you create more space, and that space in between you and that person is your biofield. And think about Dirty Dancing, that movie. This is my dance space. This is your dance space. Keep that distance. And when the biofield is broken, that energy field is broken or disrupted in some way, it causes havoc, right? And it's broken by these chemicals that we can get from our food supply, our water supply. It can be injected in a ton of different ways, or spraying our skies with this. And so it's no wonder why people can't really connect, because they get fractured. That biofield gets fractured. The soul gets fractured. And so people don't really understand what's happening, honestly, for their ascension, right? For their personal growth.
Right. And that's where I work with, like, my title that I use, is a bioenergetic chiropractor.
And what does that mean?
I don't know. I was hoping you were going to be able to tell me. I came up with this, and I'm like, gosh, I got to find someone who knows what I'm doing, because no. Anyway, just a quick story.
So people who don't know, go ahead. What does that mean?
So is because here in Aspen here, when we're skiing, there's a gondola. And the gondola gets 6 people. You're facing 3 to 3 each, and it's a 15-minute ride, 16-minute ride to the top. So when I would get in the gondola, people say, "Oh, what do you do? What do you blah blah blah?" If I would say, "Well, I'm a chiropractor," they would say, "Oh, I'm sure glad I don't need you." And I was like, "No, but you really do," And they go, "No, I'm feeling." So I came up with, what could I do that would get them curious? And so when I say I'm a bioenergetic chiropractor, they go, "Huh, I've never heard of that. What's that?" Boom, I've got them for 15 minutes. Right? They're captive audience there. So, bioenergetic, yeah, right. So bioenergetic, right? Biology is the study of life. Biography, the story of life, right? So bio is life. Energetic, right, is energy. So it's all about the optimized and the full expression of our life energy. And what I do is I address 4 main stressors, right? Like if you think of a baseball field, so home plate is physical or structural stress. First base is mental and emotional stress, right? There are things like could be a pain in the neck, pain in the butt, make you sick to your stomach, as we know, we're working with the emotions. Second base are toxins, right? We're just inundated, right? We're in a quagmire of toxins on this planet. And those are things that are in the body that shouldn't be. Also includes acupuncture, meridians, and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then third base is biochemical, nutritional. Those are things that are not in the body that should be. So you talk about the minerals, you talk about the support for these different organs and glands. So I address those stressors with what's happening. And then you mentioned the book that I co-authored, and you were correct. So there was Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dr. Bruce Lipton, Dr. Patrick Porter, Brett Brimhall. Right. There are 36 of us.
And I think Dr. Kurt, or is it Dr. Court? He's a good friend of
Russ
Dr.
Court.
Patrick.
Russ
Court. Yep.
Russ Court was in there. Yeah. Brett Brimhall. Yeah. So there are 36 of us. So my chapter.
36?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. But you only have to read one chapter. I'm just kidding. That's my chapter. Yeah. So my chapter is the art of balance, where I address those stressors, but then I talk about the three major highways in the body. And one is this fight or flight survival stress mode called the sympathetic, right? And then the other is our rest and digest and recover, recuperate, called the parasympathetic.
Right.
It's like a fire alarm when our bodies, our brains, which gets to the brain base, but the brain is all about our survival. And so, say we're sitting in a room together and the fire alarm goes off, it's like, boom, our brain's like, we got to find a door, we got to get out of here, right? And as we're running out, it's not like, I think I'll go back and get my lunch and have some lunch first. It's like, no, we got to get out of here. So that sympathetic fight or flight, the brain gets stuck in that mode like deer in the headlight, and it can't rest and it can't digest and it can't recover and recuperate.
Can't do squat.
Right. So the name of the game is to bring that back to balance. The other highway is the HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus pituitary, or in the brain that deal with the brain chemicals or the neurotransmitters. And A represents the adrenals, which drives this sympathetic system, but works with the hormonal, the endocrine. So you have the thyroid and ovaries, uterus, prostate, testes, pancreas, and so forth. So when they're stressed in the mind, they're stressed in the body. When they're stressed in the mind, they're stressed in the body, they're stressed in the mind. It's all connected. And the other highway is the gut brain. The other highway is the gut brain connection.
Right? Yeah, for sure. And I want, if you don't mind, talk to me about, because I think people really need to understand this, about how the hypothalamus has been hijacked. Like I think it's been hijacked. So let me just kind of take you where I've been, and then maybe you have a story to share, like on how this works. So that I was over medicated. I was put on 50 drugs. And so what would happen, and I talk about this in my new book, is I would go to bed and I'd wake up in a bed feel like cold and wet. Like I'd peed at night or in the morning sometime. I don't know when, because I was out cold. And my body didn't wait. I never woke up, right? I didn't get a signal from my brain to wake up and go to the bathroom. And I was on these, like I said, 50 drugs, and it literally turned off my hypothalamus.
Yeah.
And so I think it's not just the drugs that turn off our hypothalamus. And would you like to talk? Is that something you'd like to talk about? Because I'd love it if you would.
Well, yeah, one of the areas, one of the aspects that I talk about is what I call a stress brain syndrome, right? Where we can measure because, right? I mean, the brain is the battery, right? If we talk about brain base, so what does that mean? But the brain coordinates and regulates and controls everything in the body. So when the brain is balanced, the body's balanced. When the brain is not balanced, the body's not balanced. And all those stressors and those highways, right? So it's a dynamic relationship situation that it's dealing with. And so when all of those stressors are affecting the body, right? And one of them is multiple medications. We don't know what that does, right? If you're on 50 medications, I mean, they hardly know what one medication does. You start putting two together, it's a cocktail that they don't know what the ramifications are. You put multiple and multiple, that stresses the brain even more. I mean, we just saw like the COVID vaccine, quote unquote, shrinks the prefrontal cortex, which is our decision making, and then expands the hippocampus and the amygdala, which is our fight or flight system. So we're seeing, once you
does that explain why Dr. Patrick Porter was saying that the epidemic right now is that people are not getting the blood flow to the prefrontal cortex? Do you think that's the connection? Why this is such a huge situation?
Yes, that is definitely a big part of it. Just last week, 2 weeks ago, I did presented on a webinar to a Maha group about microplastics. And, they're finding that these microplastics, I mean, we have the equivalent of a plastic spoon in our brain, and we ingest the equivalent of a credit card per week.
Per week.
And a plastic comb every 3 weeks. And there's finding
that
the brain comb, like comb your hair.
A comb. So, right. And explain to people, why is it a bad thing that we're ingesting these plastics? What's it doing to our brain? What's it doing to our intestinal tract? What's it doing to our gut? Like what's happening? Why should I even care?
Well, for people who want to know, I would encourage them to try chewing on a credit card and just see if it tastes any good. You go, is this what I want to eat? Do I want to put this in my body? It's like, of course not, right? But what they're finding is that the brain attracts 7 to 30 times more plastic than any other organ in the body. And when it goes through the blood-brain
Well, that
barrier,
makes
but it
sense
also
to
goes
me.
through the olfactory.
Yeah.
And so it inflames the blood vessels,
Mm-hmm.
which creates inflammation in the brain and impairs circulation.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Daniel Amen looks at functional MRIs, which measure the circulation in the brain, where you can see the damage that, different drugs and so forth, well, cocaine, marijuana, psilocybin, ketamine, alcohol. I don't think they've done it on the plastics yet to look at that. But and in the
Well, plastics is a
micro,
form of petroleum,
yes,
right?
and so they're huge endocrine disruptors. So
Mm-hmm.
they upset the whole hormonal system, which the hypothalamus ties into, right?
Mm-hmm.
As we're looking at that. And they're also called obesogens. So they, because the body will try to dilute to protect itself. And so these plastics, microplastics, along with the phthalates and the PUFAs, phytic acid, and so forth, all these types of chemicals stimulate the body to produce more fat. So again,
Well,
it's
and also, where are
yeah,
those chemicals being stored? I'm just setting you up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, in the
They're being
brain,
stored in the
right?
fat cells. They're actually
Fat
being stored in
tissues.
the fat cells.
Yeah,
So, like when
yeah.
you start losing weight, as if you're listening to this and weight loss is an issue, what I'm going to say is that weight loss is really tied to your toxic load, right? And can you reduce your toxic load? Great. The more you reduce your toxic load, the more weight you'll lose. Would you agree? I mean, it's
Well,
more to it than that, but yeah.
yes, and I actually have been working with more people about weight loss because, again, if you go back to the home run formula, those different bases, I think that it includes all of those components. There's certainly can be an emotional component, subconscious emotions and so forth that trigger eating or so forth, right? We see the toxins, no question that they cause all kinds of problems going on in the body. And then also the foods, right? And the foods a lot of people are eating, if they're eating processed foods. But if your digestive system is not functioning efficiently because you're in that fight or flight and your parasympathetic, your digestive system can't work, you could eat the best foods in the world, and the best foods become bad foods because they're not being digested properly.
So let
So
me
we have
speak
to
to
get.
that. Yeah. So
Mhm.
let me add just to give some like real world experience on this. So when I went back to work after being disabled for 4 years, I was a size 8. Okay. I get back into the workplace, stress levels skyrocket, right? Because I'm being exposed to toxic air fresheners, toxic people, toxic. I go from a size 8 to a size 10, right?
Mhm.
I gained 10 pounds.
Mhm.
And then I started a relationship with someone, and that relationship was toxic. And so another 10 pounds. And so people really want to understand that stress is not your friend. And to reset that brain, right, is
Mhm.
a key component to having a happy life, maintaining your weight, right? And
Sure.
really maintaining your sanity, quite
Yeah.
frankly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, when I'm working with people, as far as weight issues, I'm looking at that person, go, wow, okay, so what's out of balance, right? And we see
Mhm.
the different highways, we see the different stressors. We can't get rid of those stressors. I mean, EMFs or microplastics and things like that. Fortunately, we're seeing changes in the food system. But so the name of the game is how do we manage those stressors? And I think that that's where the brain health and brain tap, because a lot of people know about physical fitness, but what are they doing about brain fitness,
Brain fitness. Yes,
right?
brain
And so
fitness.
and so brain fitness, I think is just as important as anything else in your life or in your health program. the Brain Tap has weight loss programs. I mean, it's got a lot. I think that's their most successful program that they have, because there's so much about conditioning the brain and
Mm-hmm.
supporting the brain to get out of that fight or flight so that you can detox and digest and rest and recover and recuperate. So, yeah, a lot of what I work with people, I call it foundational health. We got to get people back to balance, right? With doing these different things. And it's like, if you're going to build a house, the first thing you have to build is a foundation, right? But some people come in and they go, I want to put the windows in. It's like, no, we got to put the foundation in first. Like, I want to put the roof on today. It's like, no, we got to put the foundation in first, right?
Right. So
And so,
when I was baptized, what was across my chest was the word foundation. So there you go. Yeah. You
yeah.
got to have your foundation, and your foundation, well, it is your brain, and it controls every organ, tissue, and cell in your body. And so if you don't love your brain, and take care of it, sacred space, right?
You're right. I think it's exciting because with the Brain Tap, Patrick Porter, Dr. Patrick Porter's, they've been doing research. I mean, whether it be dementia or an anxiety or, I mean, they're doing all kinds of studies to see, because like, let's just maybe switch the conversation to like anxiety and depression, which is,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, that evil war that we're fighting is oppressive at times. So, they're doing research to see how in 6 weeks they can get people off the dementia scale, and they can deal with anxiety and all these different things. And so, but I think when you mention the weight, I think it's really a multifactorial
It always is.
issue that people, right, it always is, it's going on. So, yeah.
So let's go back to what Patrick Porter's doing, right? Because it's pretty amazing. And so yes, he's helping people with weight loss. I know that there was one session that I did that had to do with relationships and forgiveness, which is like the biggest thing in the world, outside of your brain, right? Because your brain's controlling that too.
Right.
Forgiveness of the self-forgiveness for not being the person that you needed to be for somebody else. We all carry a lot of guilt on that. And I was in Sanford, Florida, and I had listened to that days before arriving at his event. And I said to him, it's a game changer, right? Because as smart as I may or may not be, I didn't think about that one. And so
Mhm.
what I tell people is that there's so many things that we don't think about that we're condemning ourselves for. And so the Brain Tap has many contributing, health practitioners. You, I know, are contributing. I'm designing mine now. I think he's got Dr. Daniel Pampa in there. I mean, he's got tons of different health practitioners that are all contributing to the well-being of this planet, right? And there was something else you had mentioned. Oh, so it was something to do. Well, the biofield. So can we go back to that for a minute?
Sure.
So when it gets cracked or shattered, we have what's called a walk-in. Have I spoken to you about that yet?
No.
So okay, and so when I flew to Vegas in December, I flew specifically out there to talk to Dr. Patrick directly because I'm like, I thank you for endorsing the book. You might want to hear this before you continue to endorse the book. Because he's like, and his response was, it happens no other way. So here's what's happening for people when they are exposed to these chemicals. The physical body and the spiritual body part, and the spiritual body goes into another timeline and or dimension to take a mental vacation, as he puts, right? His term, mental vacation. And another soul comes in. Now that soul is not a demonic soul. It's like an ancestor who's just taking over the physical body while you're figuring out your trauma over there. Right?
Right.
And going back to what you were saying about dementia and reversing all of that, the reason I feel that the Brain Tap is so amazing is because it's one of the elements that brings people back to psychological safety, to be safe in their own body,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Well, and I think that that safety, yeah. I mean, because if people don't feel safe, then it kicks in that fight or flight, right? That survival mode.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so the brain tap is supporting people in staying, one of the tools that we use to keep people in rest and digest.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's amazing. And I think even more so now, with what people are going through is that it's stressful. I mean, I think, people are dealing with PTSD after COVID. And I think that the war is still going on. I think that the tide is changing, that people are at least starting to become aware of different things that they can do to to manage those stressors, right? And to come back to balance and to look at the different foods and to detox and, brain health and all these different types of things. And so, yeah, it's pretty amazing with that.
Yeah, and now you and I are both working with Optimal Health Systems as well, who is also warring, a campaign against the Great American Food Fraud, right?
Right,
Do you want to
right.
talk about that?
Sure, sure. I mean, Doug Grant, the owner of Optimal Health Systems or OHS, he's a wonderful mentor of mine and great friend, and boy, he is just on fire these days.
Oh yeah.
So he is working, producing a film documentary on fighting the Great American Food Fraud. So I was honored to be interviewed with that, and he's been working in the nutritional field, I think, 35 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
and is really now picking up the charge because especially what's happening with nutrition, a lot of these pharmaceutical companies are buying up these other nutritional companies, and now they're using synthetic and cheap ingredients
Oh
and
yeah.
not the types of ingredients that OHS is using. And I think that there's a couple of things. I think there's four factors about OHS products, excuse me, that I like. Number one, they're concentrated whole foods, which, if it's anything but that, you can't fool Mother Nature. And
Right.
you're putting synthetic substances in your body, just doesn't work. They're organically sourced. Obviously, Doug's all about purity. They're pre-digested, which I just don't come across many, if any,
Okay, so this is
other
new.
vitamins.
I did
Yeah, so
not know they're pre-digested, and what does that really mean?
I
Like, how
hope I
do
was
they
hoping you were going
accomplish
to
that?
tell me.
Do you know?
It's a fermentation process.
They fermented it. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a fermentation, just like kimchi and sauerkraut and
All day.
those different products. So it's which makes them about 300% more absorbable than any other vitamins that are out there. Maybe you've seen pictures of people with X-rays. They've taken their vitamins, and the vitamin pill is sitting right there. It's like, well, they haven't
Oh,
digested it.
because it's a synthetic. The body doesn't know how to process it,
Yes,
right?
but even so, the pre-digested, make sure that it's broken down into the ingredients, and when they're in the concentrated whole food forms, they are in the forms that the body utilize. So might be like magnesium or calcium. Those are a couple of substances that you hear that are in different forms. Well, they all need to get back down to this biglycinate form, which is the form that the body absorbs and utilizes. So all these other forms are not utilized. And the fourth thing about the OHS, which I just think is really cool, do you know about solfeggio frequencies or solfeggio frequencies? Right there.
Solfeggio. And do I know
So,
about them? I live with them. Go ahead.
right.
Yeah.
So because all of the products with OHS in their production area, they have these frequencies going. And
Yeah.
so all the products are infused with these energetic frequencies, which you can go on YouTube and just play it through and so forth, which are really cool. So, but I think,
Yeah, they're a very high frequency supplement. And when I was disabled, my mentor, Dr. Danny McLean, is the one who introduced me to Optimal Health Systems in 2016. And it was at the tail end of my disability. And I've been using their products ever since. And then, of course, became, a nutritionist, although I'm not one in Georgia. because Georgia doesn't allow for that. You have to be a registered dietitian and teach crappy shit. So that's a technical term. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people that I've met in OHS are in a similar situation, that they got their traditional training and have transitioned over, going, that they weren't teaching us the right thing. So it's kind of interested with that. Yeah.
Well, right. And I, one of the products that I really love from them is the glutathione. Those fizzy tablets that they have, right?
What can you say? That's what I'm drinking here. I got my
Oh, are you?
glutathione.
Okay, so it's like the best thing on the planet. And when I was at the conference, I didn't know about it. And so, I'm popping my BFFs, the blood vessel, or, flexible formula, BFF. I just called my best friend forever formula. And then I see the cap, so I popped it in my mouth, not knowing it was a fizzy tablet, and I start foaming right at the mouth. And so
I was actually going to come up and introduce myself, and then you started foaming, and I turned around and walked away. I said, maybe I'll
right, she's like a rabid dog.
No, just right. I'm like, no, just something's not right about here. I'm gonna let someone else help her out here. But I don't know what to do. And I remember you seeing you foaming. I was like,
it was funny. It was funny. And so and actually the Freeman formula, it also does the same thing with high frequencies, right? He puts the frequency of love on everything that he does. So the only companies I work with are companies that understand that everything's a frequency, and that if you're not, and by the way, before it leaves, if they're not buying direct from OHS or Freeman formula, I'm running frequencies on these too, while they're sitting here in my clinic. And so because everything's a frequency.
Yeah, it's all energy. It's all energy.
So what do you want people to know about you? I mean, do you want to, you created that Revive, right? Is that yours?
No,
you just were sharing the Revive.
Yeah, I think, no, I
the
don't.
PEMF device, that may have the wrong name for it.
Yeah,
No,
I'm not. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't worked with them.
Okay, so my apologies. I may have the wrong name, but it was a PEMF device that was paired with the brain tap.
Yeah, I remember when Patrick was showing that. I think I was trying it, but I was not. I'm not.
Oh, you were playing with it. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of fun though to pair the brain tap with different things, right? Not necessarily biohacking, but biostacking.
Yeah.
How do you biostack? How do you help your patients biostack?
Well, I use some different things with it. Brain tap is one of them. Nutrition,
Right.
I work with people detoxing. I have a far infrared sauna in my office. I use laser. I do a lot of the emotional release work, and so those are things that I can do in the office. Although brain tap, sauna, nutrition, people take home.
That's a great biostack. All of it, yeah.
Right,
especially and work is critical.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I find those to be, kind of foundational, right? I mean, I think working with that, there are a lot of things out there, but, and as you'd well know that, some of them work better than others. Let's just try to say it tactful like that. But I think it's all energy, and I think it's all part of the journey for people to be on. And you asked, as far as me helping people or to take away from this, I think the biggest thing is to take responsibility for your own health journey, and to start becoming aware. And I work with people a lot that you start making better bad choices, right? We always have a choice. Is it a good choice or a bad choice? Sometimes you might not eat or drink anything is one of your choices, and you're probably better off than some of those other things. But to start becoming aware, right? And so in my situation, when I'm working with folks, my goal is to empower them And a lot of people have so many accumulated stressors that have happened over the years, like we mentioned, the bases and so forth, that they need help, to coach them along or to keep them on track. So, a lot of times I've become more like a health coach for people. They're asking about taking different vitamins or detoxing, and trying to keep them on that brain tap program, because it's interesting how many people that's challenging to change those habits. So it's, about creating new habits, new identities, helping them with their future self. The future self is, a lot of times we're making choices or decisions based on things from the past. Whereas, the future self, it's like, who are you going to be in 6 months or a year or 3 years and 5 years? Right.
Right.
And create that identity so that you're making your decisions based on what that future self would be deciding and making their choices on. And that helps you even more so to let go of those things in the past that didn't, that were not helpful for you. But now you're making choices that are empowering and, again, optimizing your life energy.
Yeah. And I want to just take that to the next level. So going back to choices, I failed forward so many times. People always say, don't judge people for what they're doing today, right? And I always reply with, I'm in no space to judge anyone. I'm the one who took 50 drugs, right? I'm the one who listened to a doctor for 20 years and did everything knowing full well it was going against my body. I gained 100 pounds in 8 weeks.
Oh,
I mean, come on,
wow.
right? So I'm not here to judge anyone. But what I want to say is that we have a choice in the matter. We can choose to focus on our lessons, right? So that people often refer to as failures. And I'll say that's just failing forward, right? Get you to the next level. Pat yourself on the back when you make a mistake, because you're not going to do that one again, right?
Hopefully, right?
Hopefully. Yeah, I mean, really, right? Hopefully.
Until we learn it, right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I took drugs for 20 years until they're not to, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it took me a little bit to fail forward. It doesn't mean it's a one-time event, right? How many times you need that lesson? Well, I needed it for 20 years, apparently. So, and then, what I would say is, where's the focus, right? So you can focus on the past or focus on this future that you're creating. Going back to Bobby Kennedy, look, that guy's had a lifetime of failures, right? He's made mistakes.
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, and hi, Chris. How are you, honey? So he's made lots of mistakes. So is he focused on his mistakes? No, he's focused on his mission.
Yeah.
He's focused on how he's going to help the world see the truth, right? And give them something that they've never even been exposed to. Most of the world has never been exposed to clean water, right?
Yeah.
How about that?
Right.
So love yourself where you're at. Would you agree? Stop making yourself wrong and focus on your mission. And if you don't know what your mission is in this current paradigm, following somebody else isn't going to work. You can learn, right?
Right.
And then go create your own. Would you agree with that? Or
yeah, totally. That's, goes back to what I was saying as far as this war that we're fighting and how we're going to win, is through love and compassion, communication. And we've got to do that for ourselves. We have to love ourselves. We have to have compassion, and we also need to communicate with ourselves. Are we listening to what we're saying, or are we talking to ourselves, right? And delivering the message that we want, that we should be telling ourselves, as opposed to sometimes that chatter that happens, oh, this or oh, that or whatever, where we can easily get in there and beat ourselves up. But I always like the phrase, no events have meanings until we give them meanings. So when things happen, right, or do we have winning situations, and what's the other type of situation? Learning situation.
learning.
Right?
It's not really failing. It's learning.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that maybe at this point in my life or whatever, like I mentioned, being more excited than ever because of what is happening, with the changes and in the health of people, health of the planet, and what's going on. And so it's very exciting. And I think, but I think the compassion to have for ourselves and to have for others is really a key part to really making the changes that I think a lot of us want to have in our lives.
So I agree
Healthier
with
life, right?
you. Yeah. So the more compassion, this is my opinion, the more compassion that you can have for yourself, right? Then you can extend it to somebody else. But if you can't give yourself compassion, then how are you going to extend it to somebody else? Because you haven't experienced it.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So so
So
it's
love
exciting.
yourself
It's fun.
first. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
Chris says these are exciting times for sure, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Rock and roll is here to stay. So
ha ha ha. So, people can reach out to you. How? I've got it on the ticker, but if you would share with people how to connect with you, Dr. Tom.
right. So lankeringchiropractic.com is my website. My email is dradjust, DRADJUST, like a chiropractor, at Sopris. Sopris is actually a big mountain that I look out on here. Sopris.net. So dradjust at Sopris.net. My phone number, 970-927-9900. If people have questions, thoughts, or comments, welcome to contact me. I'd also like to offer as a gift an ebook that I have called The
Oh,
Art of Balance. It's called The
okay.
Art of Balance, but the site for it is The Art Balance. So the of was already taken. So,
Do I
but
have that link?
that's the website that you can go to, theartbalance.com.
Okay,
And
so I want
is
to put that
the
in the thread. So theartbalance.com. There we are. And yeah, you can so I'm on your site. Let me just show people what they're looking for.
and that addresses, my overall approach of what I'm working with, what they can work with. Um, to bring the body back to balance there.
Okay,
This
so
this
where
is
do they get the book? How do they get
um so the art, I don't know what site that is that's for my program that I'm working with. But it should be theartbalance.com. And I'm
Oh,
sorry if that's,
theartbalance.com. That's where I'm at. Well,
yeah.
you know what? I'm going to put this
Well, I've got
in.
to work on
And
that.
look, here's the thing. They can connect with you, all right, to get that book, that ebook downloaded. And I'm putting it in the thread, the referral link. And so this is where everyone's going. And if you have another link that you want to share where they can get that book, you let me know, and or set this, if you can share it in the private chat. Are you able, do you have that website perhaps? Or, and if not, I mean, they can reach out to you again at 970-927-9900. Dr. Tom Lankering at Dr. Adjust at sopris.net, or go to www.lankeringchiropractic.com. And for Reverend Jodi Suson, I can be reached at 847-738-0242. Email at jodi@susonessentials.com. Or just go straight to the website, susonessentials.com. And I am very excited also to share that I'm at a new clinic in downtown Marietta on Washington Street. Joined Heart Chiropractic Wellness Center. And they also have a sauna, a salt room. We're doing, everything wellness here. And the energy at this clinic is really beautiful. So if you're
Great.
in the Georgia area, come on by. I certainly see walk-ins, all kinds. The
All right.
energetic ones too.
Yeah.
And I do clear those, by the way. But did you by any chance, you have the private chat, so you have it here. Oh, yay, 6 biohacking secrets. Okay.
Right. That's a course that I have. Yeah. So that's
Okay. Yeah. And y'all want to just,
area.
yeah. So let me just go ahead and put that in the comments. And we're about at our time. So I try to keep this under an hour so I can put this on different platforms that, you know, require that we be shorter in our so like TikTok and so forth. So let me just present the share screen so people know what they're looking for. I think this is it. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so
That's my course program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is awesome. So you know, the Feel Younger, Have More Energy, an 8-week program, coaching program. I highly recommend that you see Dr. Tom. He is a brilliant man who's always thinking outside the box and has your best interest at heart. So,
Great.
thank you.
It's been an honor to be here. Yes. Thank you very much.
I'm so grateful to have you and to know you. And, you know, there'll be some really cool things that we get to do together in our future. I see it. I just don't know exactly when it's going to be but yeah, there's going to be some cool things we all get to do together as we watch this, this new earth evolve.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very exciting. So always wonderful to meet a fellow warrior. So yeah, thank you.
So yes, and I just wanted to say we can put on our suit of armor, right? But it's armoire, like armor, like as in suit of love.
Yeah. There you go.
So, something else, another holistic practitioner taught me. So we've got 59 minutes and 24 seconds. So we have to be under 60. So I'm going to sign off and say thank you to everybody for being here. And let me see if I can get our little video going. Wow.